Your story matters, don't let it fade. When everything changed, you were
Well, so the first and the initial one was seeing the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, February 9th, 1964. I mean, from that moment, I knew what my career path was going to be, which was I was going to be a rock star.
Yeah.
It was even before the term was created, but I knew that I wanted to play in bands and I wanted to do all that. And really, in short order, within 3 years, by the time I was 12, I was playing in a local band, and kind of never looked back. And then, another one, I guess, was deciding to move to Nashville, and then,
Yeah.
that ramped everything up. But, I could listen. My favorite subject to talk about is me. So this is going to be easy.
So let's do this. So instead of just having you talk, maybe we just go from here and just talk about your career and like what that's looked like, I mean, because obviously you and I have worked together off and on for a while now. I don't know what
Yeah,
year we started, but I mean, the music industry and maybe how that's changed a little bit. And
yeah,
what was it like when you started? I mean, I might even just use this for the podcast as we're talking now.
it's totally fine.
Yeah.
So, yeah, when I first started, it was completely different than it is now because the mathematics was different. You
Right.
had CDs that were purchased by consumers,
Right.
and typically there were 9 or 10 songs on there, but let's use 10 as the example. So a writer and a publisher could have the 10th song on a CD, meaning that it never got any radio airplay, which is another revenue stream. But if it just was on the CD and it sold 1 million units, the writer and the publisher split $100,000.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So, and then me as a song plugger, I got a piece of that, not the 50%, but I certainly got a piece of it, and it was very easy to make a really good living doing that.
Right.
So then when streaming came in, the whole dynamic changed because now the only people that buy CDs are essentially at concerts, and they're kind of merchandise or a memento or a
Right.
time of going to see somebody, which is still good, but the money is not there the same way it was for the writers or the publishers or people involved like me. So that was a defining moment. Um,
Wow.
but then also at the same time, the field kind of got leveled because anybody with a great song can put it out, and with the right amount of luck, and there's still a lot of luck involved. But
Yes.
a song can go viral, and then careers can be made from that. And there's and then at that point, an artist picks up your song, and they're able to sell tickets. And so the artist is making money with the tickets, but every time your song is played in front of 10,000 people, you're still getting paid a performance royalty too. So it's it's changed and it's continuing to change. So that's that's kind of where we are right now. But yeah,
And
it's changed dramatically since I moved to Nashville.
yeah, and I see it even like on TikTok, right? I mean, I'm putting my songs out there on TikTok, like, hey, Ted, what artist do you think should record this? Because you don't know.
No, you don't, and none of us do. I mean,
Right.
those of us in the business go, well, you really ought to be doing this, and I wouldn't do this if I were you. We don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, in fact, the exciting part about it for me. Okay, so I always thought, how cool would it have been to be in the business in the 50s when nobody knew what they were doing? Nobody. I mean,
Right?
nobody had a clue. They'd put singles out, and you'd have to, you take them to a radio station, and maybe they got played, maybe they didn't, and nobody knew.
Yeah.
Well, so I always thought it would be really cool to have been around them, but actually the truth is it's the same thing right now because
Yeah.
nobody knows. I mean, again, like I say, those of us in the business like to think of ourselves that we know everything, but we don't have a clue.
Right. Well, and on that note, let's talk a little bit about what you do as a song plugger. I
Yeah,
mean, like, what does that look like? Because some people who are listening to this might be like, well, what the heck's a song plugger? Like, what do you do?
yeah. So essentially,
It'll start back up.
okay. So it's people in different industries who know a bunch of people within that industry.
Mhm.
That's me. Because I mean, I've been in Nashville and met enough people over the years that I have this huge network of people I can talk to.
Right.
Now, those people represent, or a lot of the people who I know represent artists. Artists typically are always looking for hit songs. Okay, that's one side of it. The other side of it is writers, songwriters, not only who live in Nashville, but who don't live in Nashville. It's almost impossible to get access to those people who have the decision making. I'm not going to say skills, but they have the opportunity to make that decision whether a song gets cut or not.
Right.
Okay. So I have access to that. And as a song plugger, I hire myself out to songwriters who don't have that access. And the service that I offer them is I am able to get the songs in front of people. Now, I can't guarantee to anybody that I can get a song cut. I
Right.
can guarantee to everybody that I can get their songs listened to by the people who can make the decisions. So, I mean, it's, you know, and listen, you're a friend and you've been a client for a long time off and on. So I'm almost reluctant to say this, but I love my job because all I do all day is listen to music and talk to people. So it's
Right.
pretty great.
Well, that's good though, because I want you to enjoy it, I mean, and I think you've always been honest with us, well, Kenny and I, like, hey, like, yeah, this one is, but not every song is marketable,
No. And,
you know?
and and for me, it doesn't do me any good to tell somebody that it's, oh yeah, I can play the song for people if it's not worthy, because my credibility is on the line.
Right.
People I go to see every day, and if I start bringing them songs that are not the quality they want, when I call for a meeting, they might go, nah, I'll see somebody else. So
Right.
it's kind of like that too.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, and even as a songwriter, I don't want to send you stuff that I think is like, oh, it's okay. Let's see what Chris
Mhm.
thinks. I want to be excited about the song before I even send it to you. I'm going to listen to it on repeat 100 times and be like, okay,
Yeah.
is this getting stuck in my head? Is this
Well,
something you want to hear?
yeah, and you and also Kenny and a lot of my songwriters are really good at that because when you send me a song, you've already kind of got in mind the pantheon of artists that you feel
Right.
like it would work for.
Yeah.
Well, that helps me a lot because then I can, like, if you're thinking Miranda Lambert, Priscilla Block, and these other folks, and then there are people like right behind them who are emerging artists who I have
Yeah.
contacts with too. So, yeah, again, you and Kenny and a whole lot of my writers, you do your homework,
Yeah.
which, you know, like I love to tell my writers all the time, I am a genius, but I can't think of everything by myself. So I appreciate your input.
And that's just it, and every time I'm listening to a song, either it's something I'm doing on my own or with Kenny, I'm always keeping that in mind. Like, who would be the perfect artist for this? And even if it's not the person, like Miranda writes most of her own stuff, right? Like,
Yeah,
I don't know that she really cuts a lot of just nobody songwriter stuff. She does her own, right? But if I can tell you this, what it sounds like, I know you're going to find the people, like you said, that are kind of coming in behind her with that style,
yeah,
and it doesn't have to be somebody who's, won tons of awards and stuff, because you might have the next hit that's going to launch somebody's career.
that's exactly right. And so you can't really discount anybody. And the thing of it is too, to rewind just a little bit, Miranda Lambert and artists like her are smart enough to know a hit song when they hear it. And
True.
like, the song "The House That Built Me,"
Oh
that was
yeah.
written by Alan Shamlin, and I think the other writer was Mike Reed, but no, it wasn't Mike Reed. But point is, it was an outside song. She didn't write
That's
it,
true.
but she knew enough to go, this is a hit song. If I don't record it, somebody else will, and they'll have a hit. So,
Yeah.
and again, of course, Alan Shamlin is kind of known in Nashville, pretty well known. But I mean, I could name you 50 songs from writers like you and Kenny who are outside of the loop, but you have a great song and it gets through and it gets cut. So,
Yeah.
you
And, yeah.
again, you never know.
It's a roller coaster. And so it's interesting because I really haven't talked about it too openly on social media that I'm a lyricist. Because you get a few months where they keep your song, you're like, oh God, are we gonna get that hold, and you're up here and then they pass. You're like, damn
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But
No,
it's
it
the
is a
business.
roller. It's totally a roller coaster,
Yeah.
and it's not an easy business. I mean, if it was
Yeah.
easy, everybody would do it, but
Yeah.
it's difficult, and part of the difficulty is what you just described because you're in a vacuum. I mean,
Yeah.
you've got me doing this stuff for you, but you and I only are in contact very rarely, maybe once a month.
Right.
And so that's difficult for writers. I mean,
Yeah.
which is why this is great for you and me to talk like this. And also, I like to have conversations with my writers because I just feel like they need to know what's going on. And if we don't talk, again, you're in a vacuum.
Right. And it's always exciting for me. Like I see you going to some of these, big shows or award things. I'm like, yes, I know him. Right. So I mean, there's that. So I know that, I've got that in. It's like, and
Yeah.
I've heard people tell me, oh, you don't pay a songwriter. I'm like, how else am I going to get my stuff in Nashville? Like,
Yeah.
people aren't just going to do this for free. I mean,
Yeah. No, and
I
you're
don't know.
exactly right. And again, in my business model, as opposed to a music publisher,
Right.
you're not giving up 100% of your publishing. And,
Right. And that's
and
the difference.
yeah, and it's a big difference. And again, most people outside of the music business do not understand
Yeah.
writer's share and publisher's share.
Yep.
And to try to explain it to somebody is like trying to explain to them why the earth goes this way around the sun as opposed to that way.
Right. Yeah. And that's part of it. So that's why, like, for me, I don't get into deep conversations with people about this. They get excited if I tell them that, but I'm like, I don't talk about it because it is a roller coaster. And then again, you get into the everything about like the publisher, the songwriter, all the things, it's like it's a lot. I
It is
mean,
a
you're
lot.
kind of a needle, it's almost worse than a needle in a haystack,
Yeah. No,
trying to
it
get your songs out there.
Yeah, it is. And it's just there's so many variables that make the song path getting through to the artist. There's so
Yeah.
many variables that are different. And then when it
Yeah.
gets to the artist, you still have the major variable that, and I tell people like this all the time. Song
Yeah.
comes to me, I go, man, I love this song. I'm gonna take it to the record label. I take it to the record label. They go, man, we love the song. We're gonna get Miranda Lambert to cut it. Miranda hears it. She said, this is great. Let's do it. You send it to radio. Radio says, this is great. And they put it out and the public goes, nah,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And even there's a process. And I remember Kenny and I had a song that I believe it was John Rich had listened to for Gretchen Wilson back in the day.
yeah,
And, you get to a point with it where, yeah, they might like it, but it doesn't make the final cut of the songs, the lineup. And so you literally get this close. And you're like, come on.
yeah. There's, in fact, in American Songwriter magazine,
Mhm.
Nicole Gallion, who's a hit songwriter, now writes a column, something to the effect of the almosts, and she tells stories of those,
Yeah.
of those songs that really got this close to being a hit song, and then something happened.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
it's part of the reality of the business, and and it's very similar to it's like if you're an actor, okay, and you
Right.
have an agent, and your agent gets you an audition, you go to the audition and they don't take you. Doesn't mean that you're not good. Doesn't
Right.
mean you're not great. It just means that you're not what they're looking for at that particular moment. So
It's like right time, right place, right artist, right song. And you have to meet all the variables and even the right listeners,
that's right. That's
you
exactly
know?
right.
So why this for you? So like you talked about like you've been in the business, right? In music. So why did you go this way and I know you're connected, but like what made you say this is where I want to be? This is where I want to kind of live and help people.
Yeah, well, you hit the nail on the head right there. I mean, I've been, like anybody else, I have always tried to figure out my purpose in life. And in the last 5 or 6 years, it hit me. I help people. That's what I do.
Yeah.
I do it in the music industry, and I do it with my relationship with Macy's as well, because I consult with Macy's, the retailer. But the reason that I chose this, it really comes down to this. So I was an artist for a really long time. And after a while, it was like I was about to age out, because it was like
Wow.
I didn't want to be on the road anymore. We decided to move to Nashville because I had achieved a certain level of success in the southeastern United States. And I just went on the gamble or the assumption that if I was this successful here in the Southeast, I could go to Nashville and put in the same amount of work and maybe hit some home runs and really be like global. And
Yeah.
that's happened. But it wasn't overnight and it wasn't easy. But the real beauty of it is I get to be around creative people like you,
Mm.
like other songwriters. I don't write songs anymore, but I get to be right next to that creative buzz, and that excites me all the time. There's nothing better for me to hear than a writer to reach out to me and go, "Hey, I got a new song. You got to hear it." That's like the
Mm.
coolest thing.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah,
That's interesting. I love that because really you're giving, I don't sing, I can massacre a karaoke song, sure, but like I'm not a singer. So I just do the lyrics, right? So like
yeah,
you're giving people like me a voice, and that's where it helps because otherwise I don't have a voice to go to an open mic night and play my songs,
yeah. Well,
right? And that doesn't work for me.
yeah, and thank you for saying that because that is part of what I try to do. It's
Yeah.
try to be the connector, you know.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I love that. So tell me what would you say is your biggest accomplishment as a song plugger? Have you had like a song where you're like, I did that. I made that connection.
Yeah, there were a couple. One was Building Bridges by Brooks and Dunn. It was huge. I mean, that song
Yeah.
was top 10 for 18 months. I mean, it made way, way, way too much money for all of us. I mean, it was great.
Wow.
That was one. But there are other ones that, like, I still have a song that was written by this guy named Billy Montana that I don't have anything to do with anymore. But every now and then I pitch it just because I love it so much. And
Mhm.
you know, I would love to be the guy to get it cut, even though I don't get anything out of it except the satisfaction of, oh yeah, I believed in that song for a long time. So,
Wow. That's so
but,
cool.
but I think as far as the music industry goes, my proudest moment was when I was inducted into the North Carolina Music Hall of Fame. I had played in a band in North Carolina in the 80s. I produced their biggest selling single still today. It's still their
Wow.
biggest selling single. And when they got inducted into the North Carolina Music Hall of Fame in 2016, they told the Hall of Fame that two former members had to be inducted too, and I was one of them. So that was like amazing.
I
Yeah,
remember seeing that when you posted about that, you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Yeah, that was very cool. Wow, that's gotta just fill you with so much joy to know that, they had your back on top of it. Like they didn't have to come forward and say like there's two
No,
other members, right?
no, they didn't have to. And the other thing that really hit me during that whole process was, I was one. I honestly enjoyed playing in bands, but there were a lot of nights when I was like looking at my watch, going, I'm ready to get the heck out of here.
Yeah.
But even on those nights, it when I got inducted, it really hit me that because I had people come up to me that I hadn't seen in 30 years, and they were saying, I know you don't remember this night, but this happened, and this happened. And I'm thinking to myself, even on those nights when I was looking at my watch, I was bringing joy to people in the audience, and they were giving it right back to me. And sometimes I took that for granted. But after that realization, I don't take it for granted anymore. I mean, it's like there's a real magic to music. And
Mhm.
like when you write a song and you get it demoed and then it gets played for other people and they react or they respond to it, there is nothing better than that. That's pure joy.
Yeah, and it's at the core, it's storytelling. You
Yeah.
know, we're
Yeah.
songwriters, but we're really storytellers. And that's what people really grasp onto is the story and how they relate and put themselves inside of that song.
Yeah.
That's where the magic happens. And it's hard to do for a large audience. When you're writing songs, you want to affect a lot of people, but it doesn't always work that way. But when
Hmm.
it works, pretty amazing.
No, it's really amazing, and I think the secret to that is, and I know that you know it, and I know that Kenny does too. You're really writing for one person,
Yeah.
and as long as you can identify who that person is, then it's going to work, and because there's more, that one typical person. There are thousands of them out there,
Yeah.
and if you can zero into that one emotion that one person feels strongly, that's the connection, and then it goes viral on its own, or
Yeah.
becomes a hit song or whatever.
And it's funny that you say that because that's really the whole premise of When Stories. This is like a TEDx stage that I've built, but it's about one person telling their transformational story and somebody else saying, "Oh my gosh, like that was me." Like
That's it.
I share that story, and then they tell the next person, like, "Oh yeah, me too." Like it just kind of grows like wildfire.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. I mean, we are telling stories, and we are connecting with people by telling those stories.
Yeah. Awesome. I appreciate you coming on here so much, Chris. This is awesome. We haven't really got to sit down and talk like this, so this has been really
I,
great for me too.
I know. So no, it really is great. And I do want to say, first off, thank you for having me on the podcast. And secondly, hey, anytime you want to, we can talk on the phone
Oh, sure.
and have conversations like this. I'm happy to do it. And 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 thank you for introducing me to your audience. I really appreciate that very much.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Your story matters, so let